All right. We will go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to the Day in the Life of a Tutor Coordinator presentation. We're really excited to share what we do. Our roles are very versatile and unique, and so we're excited to have representatives from three large SEC institutions here to kind of give our perspective and our professional journey stories. So we're excited to share that with everybody, and thank you all so much for coming today. So Bree, you want to kick off our introductions?
Absolutely. So I will say that if you are able, will you turn your cameras on? I just like to see faces, at least for a little bit, kind of makes it a little more personable for us. I know that we're all in our offices and kind of probably working around this, but it would be awesome to be able to see some of the people who are attending today. So I'm Briana Murphree. I'm Assistant Director of Academic Enrichment at the University of Mississippi. I started here about 15 years ago working as an undergrad tutor. So I feel like I kind of worked my way up through the ranks, tutor, mentor, intern. And then I've been a learning specialist for about 10 years and overseeing the tutorial for about 5 years. So I did get my undergrad here at Ole Miss in criminal justice and psychology, which I obviously didn't think I would end up in academic support in any way with that, but this is the path that I ended up taking, and later got my master's in student personnel and higher education. And I work daily as a learning specialist, have a caseload of at-risk student athletes, and then oversee the tutorial program here at the University of Mississippi, where we have roughly about 70 support staff members who work under us.
So hi everyone, my name is Emma Lannon. I work at the University of Florida. I am an assistant tutorial coordinator at the University of Florida. Very similar to Bree, I actually started out as a tutor as well. I'm from Gainesville, Florida, so I grew up here, and then I ended up moving to Buffalo, New York to play volleyball for 4 years. So I went opposite ends of the country. And then I came back to Gainesville and started grad school and started tutoring. And just kind of fell in love with tutoring. I was a geography major and an international relations major in undergrad. So again, kind of similar to Bree in that I wasn't quite sure where I was going with that, and I didn't think it would end up in student personnel, but here we are. I've been on staff now for 2 years, full time, a couple more months with two years, and just really excited to kind of let you guys know what we do on a daily basis. I think it's gonna be a really great presentation just because we are 3 big SEC schools, but we do some things a little differently. So excited to kind of meet you all and hear your questions today.
All right, and I am Rachel Herrington. I am the tutorial coordinator and a learning specialist here at Louisiana State University. So I did not start out as a tutor. I was totally new to this student support services and athletics field. My bachelor's I got here at LSU in history and secondary ed, and I also have my master's degree in leadership and human resource development. I was a high school teacher for about 5 years. I knew that I didn't want to stay in the classroom forever, so that's when I started pursuing my master's degree. I transitioned to a private Catholic university here in Baton Rouge for a little bit while I started working on my master's degree, and then I actually transitioned and started working for a corporate company. I worked in human resource information systems, so I did a lot of training and data collection on our different systems for our company. But I did start to miss education and working with students. And so I saw this job position open here. I applied and I was grateful to have the opportunity to work here. I've been here for about 2 years. I oversee, in conjunction with our manager of student support services, I help to oversee our tutorial program. We have anywhere from 45 to 75 tutors. And then we have typically anywhere from about 15 to 20 student workers, just depending on the types of student workers we have each semester. So definitely a lot going on, but a lot of great things. And like Emma said, I'm really excited for y'all to get the take of how 3 large SEC institutions. We run our operations on a day-to-day basis. It's all very different, but at the end, we all have the same goal, which is to provide the best support services that we can for our student athletes. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. So if you guys have any questions, we definitely want to make this very informal and informational. So we want to make this conversational. We will have some time for questions at the end. So if you could just kind of jot your questions down, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So what are the duties of a tutor coordinator? We did the best we could to kind of narrow this down. I think it's always, my response to this is always, I can rattle off a bunch of things. And at the end, I'm always like, and other duties assigned, because we're always learning new ways and doing new things as tutor coordinators. You have to be very inventive and think outside of the box to make things work sometimes and come together. But in general, the day-to-day assistance in running the tutorial program that you have at your institution. So whatever that might mean for you, depending on if you're a full-time tutor coordinator, or maybe you're in a hybrid role or have people who work under you to help you. One of the biggest pieces for us here is definitely recruiting tutors, good high quality tutors who have awesome GPAs, come with high references from campus. We usually try to tap into the graduate school, the different deans and chairs of departments. Creating those relationships on campus is really important. Tutor to tutor is also a great way to recruit. So just putting it out there, this is what we need. If you have any friends, send them our way, especially in those tough subject areas, your businesses, accounting, finance, econs. I think we could probably all nod our heads that those are the hard ones to get filled. So recruiting them, of course, the hiring process, and then training them is also huge, right? Because they're the backbone of our programs. And if our tutors are not trained well, then we won't have a good program. So doing that, also providing a support for them. And then you also have to have, of course, some sort of disciplinary process that you follow. We always have to have rules and stay compliant. So it's important to stay on top of that. One way that we do that is definitely tutor evaluations. This is one of the best ways you can help your tutors grow. It's great to give feedback and pointers. We literally sit in on the sessions, and right now we drop in virtually, and that's how we do it. And then we provide the feedback later. It gives an opportunity to build those relationships with the tutors. They learn to trust you and come to talk to you more. When you have like Rachel was saying, anywhere from 40 to 70 people who work under you, you definitely don't cross paths with every one of them every day. So this is a really good opportunity to get to know them, ask questions, and build that relationship, which just leads to them working for you longer and recruiting better for you too in the end. Most tutor coordinators have their hand in payroll. Some of you may not, but most of you will. I do timesheets and we do payroll. That's my responsibility. I have a learning specialist who works underneath me, Brittany Cable, and she's amazing. And she helps me through that process. So usually that's a responsibility of ours, just making sure hours are counted correctly, double checking them. Of course, budgets are a big concern and a big concern for all of us right now. So making sure that we're staying within our budgets with the payroll. Now, I think your first response to what tutor coordinators do is probably the point about appointment scheduling, right? So we schedule, we reschedule, we cancel, we rearrange, we answer emails and text messages all day until you turn it off. So that is a huge part of what we do. So, keeping your phone on you and close to a computer during your working hours is important. That's an important part for you to be successful at this job. You can't just let it lay by the wayside. And then also managing your whatever system you're using is really important as well. So we use Retain here. Some of you probably use Grades First or something like that. So whatever that system is, staying on top of that, knowing how it works, and doing the scheduling through that. And then, like I said, I have a learning specialist who works directly under me, but some of you may have student workers or graduate assistants that help as well. So overseeing that and creating an environment where they can grow and learn too under you is also really important. So those are a few of our duties and responsibilities. I'm sure Emma and Rachel may want to chime in and add a couple of other things, but as we work through this presentation, we'll cover a few more things as well.
Yeah, definitely. At LSU, I have two graduate assistants who kind of help me to run things programmatically here. I have one graduate assistant who helps me day in and day out. She helps me manage the student workers. We have remote hosts who host our tutoring sessions on Zoom. And then we have student workers at the front desk who help us operate our in-house, in-person tutoring. So there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of hands in the pot. So I definitely can't do it all alone. Like Bree said, your phone is going off at all times. Your email is going off at all times. I think something that we do, and I tell the tutors this because our student athletes, they have their academic advisors and they kind of help funnel any issues with tutoring or just issues with academics in general. Well, we are our tutors' academic advisors. So they constantly seek our help, for how to handle difficult situations with student athletes, or they come to us with concern or just issues in how to tackle their content. And so this is a very unique role. There are some things when you come into the office, you have your checklist of things that you would do on a day-to-day basis, but there are some days where you literally don't know what's going to come your way. So thinking on your feet is really important, and making sure that you're providing timely feedback and assistance to whoever needs you. But day in and day out, I talk to our graduate assistants in our building, our academic advisors, our tutors, so our learning specialists, we all work together to make this tutorial center work. And so that's a really big component too, is just making sure not only are you keeping in communication with your student athletes and your tutors, but your staff as well.
I think kind of building off that, for us at Florida, we have 150 tutors on staff. So as they said, it's definitely a lot of moving parts, and it's two of us in a hybrid role that kind of share that responsibility. But it is a lot of people. It's a lot of communication. I think the two biggest things for this role is communication and flexibility. Things are going to change all the time. I'm working in athletics, practice runs late, someone gets hurt, things happen. So having that flexibility is really, really important. But that's what I love most about the job, is that it's never the same. So every morning I wake up and, you do have those things, you need to respond to your emails, maybe read some tutor reports, check in with some tutors. But every day at the end, I'm like, oh, I didn't think I was going to do that today. But things just come up your way and you kind of get to take them head on, which is what I really like about it, is it's never the same. And I never feel like I'm always sitting in my desk, like we're in the building full time. It was always, I'm going up, I'm doing things, I'm moving around, which is really big for me. So that's something I really, really enjoy about being a tutor coordinator for sure. But our next slide is just going to talk a little bit more about what qualifies you to be a tutor coordinator. And it's actually very diverse, kind of as you've heard Rachel and Bree talk as well, because we have very different backgrounds. Really depending on the institution that you guys apply to work at and hopefully do work at, it might be different degrees of what they want. Most do require a bachelor's degree, and then obviously a master's is preferred. When I started working at Florida, I was still finishing my master's because I was a full-time tutor at the time, but most of them do prefer a master's. So if you guys are currently GAs, you're already halfway there. I will say communication, as we've kind of touched upon, is really, really big. But the reason it's so big is because when you're a tutor coordinator, you talk to everyone and you do get to meet people from such different backgrounds. I know Rachel kind of talked about, you meet advisors, you meet students, you have tutors, learning specialists, like we're talking literally hundreds of people that you get to meet and interact with on a daily basis. I know we were just talking about before you guys got on our work phones and how they ring all the time. I do love that because I like talking to people and I like kind of building those relationships. But it is really, really cool experience if you guys kind of like forming relationships. I'm a big relationship person, and just having that communication role with your tutors and your student athletes. Something else we've kind of talked about at some different institutions is being a hybrid role. I will say it's a lot for one person as a tutor coordinator. No matter how many tutors you have, whether it's 70, whether it's 150, it's still a lot of questions. If everyone had one question, that's plenty of emails and text messages for a day. So it's nice that some schools do have that hybrid role. I know Bree and Rachel both talked about being learning specialists on the side as well, which is awesome. So you do kind of get that reprieve a little bit of having your own students. So a lot of institutions do that. So make sure to look out for that if you guys are ever applying for a job where you maybe aren't sure you want to be just the sole tutor coordinator. But the final thing that we all think is really important is personality. Having a personality that people trust you and want to talk to you and you just seem approachable, I think is super duper helpful. You kind of grow into it. Definitely assertive is important because you want to have that respect right off the bat, but also just having that personality where people want to talk to you. They want to ask you questions. They want to know how they can get better. I think is really, really important when it comes to kind of the qualifications that maybe aren't on paper, but just helpful for you guys to have as tutor coordinators.
All right, so tutor hiring and recruiting. So I would say our biggest asset and help in recruiting is our tutors, word of mouth from our tutors who currently work for us. So for our students who are undergrad tutors, you know, their peers in their classes, their professors, our graduate and professional tutors, you know, telling their colleagues and friends about what we do. So our tutors are a huge component of recruiting for us. And then pre-COVID, attending on-campus job fairs, a lot of LSU has shifted their job fairs to an online or virtual format. So we've been attending job fairs on Zoom to meet with student workers or just students interested in tutoring. Making sure just to communicate with other departments on campus. That's a huge component in helping to recruit tutors. Also, just making sure that you know, those courses we've talked about, those high need courses. So our business courses, maths, things like that, where students need a lot of help and supplemental instruction, just building those relationships with those departments on campus. We've had to think outside of the box in terms of recruiting with COVID. So we decided to make a 5-minute job posting video just to talk about what we're looking for with our tutors, the requirements, all that good stuff. We emailed that out to professors. Some of the professors graciously posted it to their Moodle page so that their students could watch the videos for us. And that's a huge component, just kind of networking with faculty and staff on campus. And even though we are an academic center for student athletes, you know, we still all want the best for our students. And we want to help those students on campus who want jobs work as well. So just building those relationships can help with recruiting. In terms of the hiring process, that obviously differs from institution to institution. We have content tutors and strategy tutors here. Some institutions have what they call mentors. So our content tutors, they work specifically on tutoring, you know, your basic contents, English, math, science, etc. We have strategy tutors who help work on study skills, time management skills, academic skills building, and that's what mentors at other institutions also do. There's a diverse population typically, so we hire undergrad, grad, and PhD students. We have professionals, working professionals who come and work for us, like teachers, counselors, social workers. So we have a very diverse population, which is also really great because our students get exposed to very diverse people. So that's an awesome plus. We do have a requirement. If you're a content tutor, you obviously have to have A's and B's in the courses that you're tutoring. You have to have a successful academic track record. So those are things that we're looking for when we're hiring and interviewing tutors. We also have compliance. If a tutor who is interviewing with us, if they divulge that they have a pre-existing relationship or they went to high school with a student athlete, anything like that, they would have to get approved by compliance in athletics. So we have to have that working relationship with them as well in the hiring process. And then the last bullet is really important. Once tutors are hired, be sure to check in on them, especially your new tutors. They're going to have a lot of questions in terms of payroll and then day in and day out, just asserting themselves, getting to build rapport with their students. And I always love checking in with our undergraduate tutors because they kind of they kind of give me hope and keep me going on the tough days, because they are truly mature and great students, and they just want to help other students as well. So I think it's really important to check in with them, and retention is huge in what we do. Obviously, there's a high turnover with undergraduate tutors, and it's not because they don't like it, it's because they have to graduate and grow up. How selfish, right? But that is the nature of what we do. We have to constantly recruit and hire. We have students who would love to stay with us, but they get assistantships on campus, or they get internships and can't work with us anymore. But I will say one cool thing about what we do is that we usually have people come back. So if they can't work with us, the next year or two, sometimes years down the road, tutors do come back because they enjoy their experience with us so much. And I think that is because of the relationships that we build, and we're really intentional about the retention component as well. So Emma and Bree, y'all have anything you want to add to that? No?
No, I think you covered a lot of it. I think that, you really hit it home on the recruiting and using your networking on campus. That's not a comfort zone for everyone, but just getting out there and meeting people when you are able to actually get back out on campus physically, go into luncheons and things like that is a great way just to get to know faculty and educate them more on what we do, because a lot of times they don't know exactly what we do. So having those conversations and building those relationships will really take you really far in the recruiting process for your tutors.
For sure.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think every time you can meet a faculty and see if they have extra TAs or anyone they weren't able to hire, that's something we do a lot of at Florida, because sometimes there's just not enough TA positions for those stellar students. So we really, really rely on our faculty, because they tend to trust when they recommend people and we hire them, they trust that those tutors are going to be good tutors. I think Bree hit upon it, where sometimes they're not sure what we do. If they hear about athletics, they hear about tutors, they don't know who they are and why they're tutoring their class. But if you do kind of build that rapport, it's super duper helpful for sure.
Yes. And we have some professors on campus who tutor with us, or they help with our summer bridge program. And so I think that speaks volumes in what we do, because in academic centers, for student athlete academic centers, we're under more of a microscope in terms of compliance and NCAA violations and all that stuff. So hitting home accountability and integrity is a huge, huge piece of what we do. So when we have people on campus who are working for us and they see the trainings that we're doing and we're practicing what we preach, we want the utmost academic integrity in our academic centers. That's a great recruitment piece as well. They can go on campus and say, look, what they're doing at the academic center for student athletes is top notch. Y'all should go work there, all that good stuff.
Okay. So we've recruited them and we've hired them. Now we need to train our tutors. So everyone kind of has their own way of doing this. We start obviously with an orientation. We have recently split our orientation, where we do a new tutor orientation. Our brand new hires, we have a whole PowerPoint, a whole presentation just for them. And then we have the orientation for everyone, which the new tutors would attend as well. And of course, it's good for them to hear a lot of the information more than once. So we always start our trainings at the beginning of the year with an orientation. And that's really, really important. And it's really important who you include in your orientation and in your trainings. So we also collaborate with compliance regularly. I'm sure most of you do. Compliance comes in for our orientation. They do an online training for us that we email out to tutors and they have to complete, which is followed by either an in-person or an online training, like via Zoom, like we're doing now, where the compliance breaks down and goes through the training with them. We do a compliance update, as we call it, at every training. So it just keeps everyone fresh on policies, cases, different types of infractions that are going on across the country. That's the best way to educate your tutors, is to show them examples and work through those and why there was an issue with whatever happened at whichever institution. So If you don't already collaborate with compliance on that level where they are involved in every single training that you do, when you get off of this, you need to send them an email and say, this is what we need to start doing, because it's one of the best moves you can make to check all of those boxes. Like Rachel was saying, we are under a microscope, and your tutoring program is going to be under a microscope. If anything may possibly go wrong, you don't want it to be in the tutoring program. So educate them and bring compliance in and work with them on that. So that's a big part of trainings. We have 4 trainings. All trainings are mandatory. That's how they stay compliant, is by attending them. We do have one makeup training at the end of the year that we don't really advertise. Of course, our veteran tutors know that we do that, but the idea is that they attend the tutor trainings that we have. We do them typically once a month, is kind of how that falls. And we do them on Sundays at 2 o'clock, because I don't know when else you get, 50 plus people together at one time where there aren't a million conflicts. Of course, they're on Zoom right now, which is really nice for the people who are having to travel and stuff like that. But also, in addition to that, making sure you're covering the day-to-day policies and any updates with those. We usually do like a housekeeping slide, is kind of what we call it. So anything that we need to address that's the last training, any reminders we need to give them, any dates coming up that are important, definitely going through all of that. Title IX is huge. I'm sure your institution and your department already requires that, but if not, we always do a full training dedicated just to Title IX. Every single semester. We do that. We bring them in, and they do a great job here at Ole Miss. So that's definitely another suggestion. If you don't already have them involved in what you're doing, I would go ahead and form a relationship with the Title IX office and bring them in to speak to the tutors as well. Other trainings that we do, we like to have our graduate assistants help us with trainings. It gives them an opportunity to put something together, build the resume a little bit. A lot of times they're obviously in classes and a little more creative in the moment than we are. If you've put together training after training, then you know that coming up with fresh ideas is really, really important. So tapping into the people and your resources there in the office. So we usually do a training where our graduate assistants get to present as well. And then other forms of trainings that we do just to kind of help our students our tutors stay in the loop. Our compliance office sends out a monthly newsletter, and then any case updates that are going on around the country. So we also send those out as just educational pieces to our tutors, so that if they have any questions about things like that, it'll give them an opportunity to ask at the next training or to email us back. So we do that via email as well. And then I think Rachel was going to touch on the College Reading and Learning Association that they utilize at LSU.
Yeah, so there's an international training association and certification program through CRLA. So we do this training. It's kind of an extensive, lengthy process to get it initially. We're actually going through our recertification process currently to get recertified through CRLA. But there are 3 levels. There's levels 1, 2, 3. They all get a little bit harder as it progresses, but it's supposed to build your tutors' skills in working with students. And it's not just for student athletes or tutors who work with student athletes, it's just tutors who tutor across the board. And so it's really, if your institution doesn't have this training, I recommend looking into it. Once your tutors are certified at levels 1, 2, and 3, they're certified nationally. So they can take that wherever they go. So it's a really good professional development piece for them, because it's something that they can kind of leave and take with them as they go and become young professionals themselves. So it's really cool. And then just like Bree said, just working with compliance. We have our compliance office come and talk to our tutors at the beginning of the semester and give a pretty extensive training. And then throughout the semester, we give them compliance checkpoints and quizzes and assignments and things like that to get their feedback on how things are going in sessions and things like that. But it's definitely huge. Title IX and advocacy and accountability, if you have those on your main campus, getting them to talk to your tutors as well is really huge.
And I know something else we do at Florida that doesn't cost money when it comes to additional trainings. For our new tutors, they're required to attend workshops. It's very similar to kind of what Bree is talking about of having GAs present. But we actually do panels. So we have a student athlete panel where we have our new tutors kind of ask different student athletes like what they expect from tutoring and what they like from tutoring, and just kind of give some of our new tutors feedback as to what to expect, because some of the new tutors are not quite sure how to run a Zoom session, how to do these things with the students and what they may like. And we also do one with our learning specialists and advisors. So then tutors kind of know how to build a rapport, and they get to meet many advisors and learning specialists and just kind of see how they want to move forward when it comes to their relationship as well. So those are ways, if you're at a smaller institution that maybe doesn't have the money or resources or a giant compliance department, just to kind of give your tutors more information of how they can be successful, especially as new tutors. And then going to our next slide, just kind of talking more about molding yourself as a young professional. These do apply to being a tutor coordinator, but I also think they apply to pretty much any job you work in athletics and any job in general. Molding yourself as a young professional is really, really hard, but it's something that's really, really important to do. The first thing we all agree on is boundaries. As we've kind of joked upon, but very seriously, our phones ring all the time. So it's very important to kind of set those boundaries and realize that there's always going to be another email, there's always going to be another text message. So you need to kind of find those boundaries of where you cut off for the night or the weekend or whatever it may be. That's not saying we all love our job. We all do fantastic times that are fantastic things for our job, but we need to find time for ourselves to just kind of turn it off and regroup for sure. So make sure as a young professional, I know you guys want to do a great job, but that you also are able to kind of find your time and your downtime to just kind of be at one with yourself and not always looking at your phone. Also in this profession, you definitely get to work with a lot of different personality types. I think we've touched upon that multiple times, but if you look at all the different advisors, all the different learning specialists, all the different tutors, and then all the different student athletes, you're getting a whole bunch of different personalities when you think about all those people. That's what I love about the job, is I love getting to meet new people and get to figure them out and figure out who's going to be a good match and who works well with who. But just know that that is very tiring, but it's very, very fun to do. But it's a great thing to remember that we're all working towards the same goal. So sometimes, some students and some tutors may not get along, but at the end of the day, we are all working towards the same goal of trying to have those student athletes have the best academic support they can from our tutoring services. And then also just pursuing your own professional development. So things that we do as tutor coordinators, we have an SEC tutor coordinator meeting, which has been really cool. It's something we've started during COVID, just kind of get to know one another and kind of understand what everyone's going through. Obviously there's N4A. If you guys aren't a part of that, I highly recommend being a part of N4A, another great organization to kind of see how other people in athletics do things. But any kind of professional support groups that you guys can find as a young professional is really important, not just in athletics, but in any job. Any connection you can make is a great connection, because you never know where it may lead later in life. So definitely finding those professional development opportunities is really, really important. Anything to add, Rachel and Bree?
No, I'm just clicking away accidentally. Sorry about that. But no, I second that. Definitely set your boundaries. I think in what we do in athletics, it's a 24/7 job, but I think that's how it is promoted sometimes, but it doesn't have to be. There are things like know the pecking order, know the high important emails, know the high important issues that need to be addressed, and just give yourself time to breathe some days, because like we've been saying throughout this presentation, you wear a lot of hats. You're supervising a lot of employees. So it's so important for you to take care of yourself and make sure that you're giving your best day in and day out by setting those boundaries. That's super, super important. All right, so what's next for our field? We do not know. We are still trying to figure out how to navigate COVID, obviously with vaccines being more available to the public. That's definitely going to have an impact on us moving our operations back in person and states opening up and all that good stuff. But we do know one thing is for certain, that the virtual format will be here to stay in some capacity. We were actually, Bree, Emma, and myself were talking about this. Our professional tutors are loving this virtual format. Our tutors who are working professionals, teachers, social workers, they are loving not having to commute to campus after work day in and day out, and they can join Zoom from their home. So this has been really great for them. Obviously, just like we have students who thrive and do better in person, we have tutors who do a lot better in person. And so we're glad to kind of, now that we have been forced to use Zoom and do this virtual tutoring component, we know it does work in a lot of cases. And so it's also nice to have that option going forward as well. So this obviously means that we will have to continue to think outside of the box with ways to train our tutors and keep our students engaged. But I think as we Zoom more and do all these virtual meetings and stuff, we have more tools readily available to kind of assist our students and our tutors, which is definitely a huge plus. And just making sure with the virtual component, you know, going back to that checking in on your tutors, people have a lot going on in their personal lives. You know, there's been a lot that we've gone through as a country over the last year. And so just making sure to not lose that empathy for people, and making sure that you're a support person for people as they need it. That's really important. We're losing a lot of that face-to-face contact and communication. And so just know, as we stay in this virtual realm in some capacity, just make it a point to have those really intentional relationships and check in on your tutors and your students. All right, and we're here for questions. I did see one come up in the chat. Rebecca asked, she said, thank you all for such an informative presentation. If you have a moment, I'd love to hear about how a tutor coordinator applicant can highlight their versatility and problem-solving skills in an application. Bree and Emma, you have anything to add to that?
I think highlighting things through your resume and the application process that you've achieved or participated in or been a part of, especially if it's anything specific to going virtual, and having to think outside the box and be creative and you know, kind of try to solve those issues that we've all had to face. I think that just bringing that up like you would anything else, pointing it out in your resume, or you know, whatever the process is that you're going through, the interview process, you know, whatever it is, just talking about it is one way to let people know where you stand and what you've experienced and what you've, you know, developed over your time as you've become a young professional.
And I think building upon that, people management, a lot of our job is just dealing with people all day. So any way that you can, either if you've worked in sales, if you've worked in food service, anything like that as a young professional, or maybe you haven't had that first big girl or big boy job yet, anything that's kind of just dealt with people, I think is really, really important in the tutor coordinator role, just because that's what we do all day. So anytime you can highlight that, or just kind of say, you know, I'm really effective communicator, I took a great comm class, anything like that, I think is really, really helpful in those applications for sure.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on both of those things, I think anytime you've assisted in like a training or a big event or something where you had to organize something, even if you didn't do it by yourself, if you were just a part of that, a lot of what we do is herding cats, I always say. I mean, it's just really about organization and effective communication. So any way you can kind of hit that home and really sell yourself in that cover letter with your resume is going to speak for itself, right? But it's the cover letter where you really want to sell yourself and broadcast all the good things that you do. And so I think all of that is really important. Any other questions? Let's see. Using the chat feature in Microsoft Teams, let's see, sorry, it keeps scrolling, has been awesome for our tutors staying connected for both one-on-one and group chats, super quick way. Yeah, Microsoft Teams is great. That is a really cool feature for tutors to stay connected, and for us as well. Any other questions or comments?
I will say something else we've done at Florida to keep people connected, because I know we briefly talked about that. We do office hours. So myself and my fellow coworker, we do office hours with our tutors. So it just gives them time to kind of drop by and ask us questions via Zoom and kind of get to know us better, kind of working on that retained level of keeping them around. But going along with that, we also have a tutor advisory committee, which I highly recommend to anyone who would be starting at a new job. It's really, really helpful just having some of your all-star tutors be be those kind of sources of answers for any questions of new tutors. So if you guys have any questions about like a tutor advisory committee or anything like that, like we would love to talk about it. I think it's something that Florida does a really good job of. I wish I could say I was responsible for it, but I wasn't. But when I came here, it's been really awesome to have like 10 tutors that everyone kind of looks up to, and they are assigned new tutors and can ask them questions and things like that.
Yeah, that's really great. Any other questions or comments? No? I think we do have one more. Let's see. Thank you. We also put our contact information here. If you all have any questions, if you need any advice or anything, that's what we're here for. So please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you, and we wish everybody the best of luck as young professionals, especially with getting your first job or starting your professional career. Just really sell yourself, and I hope we've kind of helped you decide that being a tutor coordinator is awesome, and it's super fun and versatile. Let's see, we have something else in the chat. This was great. Thank you. Thank you all for the great feedback. We really appreciate that. All right. Do we have a QR code to show them? I don't know.
Yes, I'll pull it up right now.
Okay, thank you. If everybody could just hang out just a second, we have a QR code. If y'all could just take a picture and provide some session feedback for us, that would be great. And Molly is going to share it. There you go. All right, and then once you do submit your QR code survey, you are free to go. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to spend it with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks. Okay. Almost right on the dot, an hour.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop this.